Hi, my name is Miriam Bogler, and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Pulse. In this project, I would like to talk to you about what is project-based learning. But before I do that, before I go to the definition of what that is, I would like to talk about what project-based learning is not. And so I'm going to start with the types of projects that are out there. So there is the traditional project. The traditional project is the one that we usually did when I was in school. For example, when we had the science fair, one of the projects that I did was about the planets, about the solar system. And what I did in order to accomplish it, I just went and did some research, and then summarized information about each planet, and also got some images, and basically in my project, I included the summaries and included a few images, and then went on and used some arts and crafts materials to create a few of those planets. And of course, then took everything and presented it in my science fair. So in essence, what I did was a summary plus images plus object, which equals the traditional project. Now, why is this not a project-based learning? Because this is not a project that leads students towards an inquiry, that they inquire and they are leading towards some goal that they need to accomplish. And on the way, they are going through a lot of steps of asking questions and exploring and coming up with answers, and then and then basically getting feedback. So all these things that you will see in a minute that are part of project-based learning are lacking in this case. The other type is the one where people are assuming that project-based learning is actually a hands-on project, is the one that you build something. And, just the process of building, if you accomplish it, that is considered to be a project. And so there's nothing further from the truth than that. Because, for example, and what you see here in the images, one of them is, of course, this house that was built from popsicle sticks or something like that. So just by building it, this is considered to be a project. Well, there's no learning experiences that come with it. The students are not gaining knowledge from this that they can then apply towards another project or another similar project. And of course, they have a few of problems that they have to overcome here in terms of the building process. But there are so many there's so many foundational knowledge that in order to understand how houses are built, the student needs to know. So maybe the best case to show you is when the students are building a robot. So just by building it, it really, I had a lot of students building robots and using blueprints. And by the end of the process, they felt a feeling of accomplishment. But really, when they wanted to build a special robot according to what they, their dream robot, I should say, then they were stumbling because they did not have those basic principles, knowledge principle, I should say, that that allow them to now come and do something that is unique to what they want to do. And so let's look at this example. And these students build a robot and they want to take the robot through this maze. And so in order to do that, it is not enough just to build it. So they build it, that's one of the phases. But then in order to actually take this robot through this maze, they need to understand how gears work, how the lighting impacts navigating the robot through the maze. What is torque, how they can increase the level of power that the robot has in advancing through this maze. What is friction, whether the surface that they are taking the robot through is not the right surface for that purpose. So and this is just a minuscule part of everything they need to understand that is outside of the realm of actually building this robot. and accomplishing the goal of taking this robot through this maze. So let me shift to what project-based learning actually is. So what I like to use is the definition provided by the George Lucas Foundation on their research site that says that project-based learning is an inquiry-based educational approach in which students explore real-world problems through individual and group projects. And then it continues and says, this teaching and learning method encourages students to make sense of why content is useful and how it might be applied. So I already hinted to the fact that in project-based learning, it is not just the doing. The doing comes with a lot of content, with a lot of knowledge base. And that's why they are saying, one of the reasons that they are saying this is because it's actually hinting also to another thing. It hints to the fact that many times students are learning things in schools and they have no idea why they are learning them, and they are complaining. They're saying, I don't know why I'm wasting my time on this because I don't see how I can apply this in my life. Just to give you an example, let's say that the math teacher is teaching the Pythagorean theorem, and the students are learning the formula, they learn how to develop it, they learn how to use it in other problems. But by the end of the process, they really don't understand why they applied so much effort into it when really they don't see the connection to anything. And so what they are telling us here, that in a project-based learning situation, that type of wondering does not happen, because the final goal or what they need to investigate dictates what they need to learn in order to come to that conclusion. And so anything that they learn, they know that is necessary for that goal. So this is already a big thing, because students already see the connection. They see the context, why they need to know this, because otherwise they will not reach that final conclusion. So let me just go through all the characteristics that I gathered of what project-based learning actually is. And so it says here, PBL can be deeply engaging and effective as compared with traditional teacher-centered instructional approaches. And what they are doing here, actually, they are comparing and contrasting these two methods. The one which is the traditional teacher-centered, in which the teacher is in front of the class talking to the students, and the students are listening to the teacher. Of course, this method many times creates the situation where the teacher starts talking, the students listening, and then after a few minutes, they just veer off with their thoughts to something else. And, they realize suddenly that they are not listening to the teacher anymore. And that's why this type of learning becomes so much ineffective. But then there is the one that the PBL, when they are actually the ones who are guiding and leading the project. They are the master. They are the bosses of the project. They dictate what needs to be done. And by being so active participants and planners of this project, it becomes much more engaging for them, because they become suddenly similar to a team of workers in a workplace that has to accomplish some goals. So there's also a feeling of importance that comes with it. PBL involves a complex task organized around a challenging central question, resulting in reflection, iteration, and the creation of a final public product. So really, this sentence in itself is really the summary of what project-based learning is. It starts with a central question. It starts with or main question, or the driving question. And they start with the driving question, and then they move on, they ask more questions, what we call refining questions. And all these refining questions are going to lead them to understand what type of knowledge they need to possess in order to come up with the conclusion, or in order to solve the problem that they need to solve in this project. And so, those are the complex tasks organized around the challenging central question. So those tasks need to be accomplished in order to, to be able to solve the problem. And then it also tells us that it results in reflection, that, you know, you're not just learning all those, you know, or you're not just performing all those tasks, complex tasks, but while you are doing it, you are constantly reflecting on it and iterating. When you get feedback, you are iterating on the process, and you are fixing and coming back again and reflecting on it, and again providing it for feedback. So this is a constant process of back and forth. And finally, when you are finished and it really seems like this is exactly what you are supposed to do, or it solves your problem, in other words, you will the team will present it to the public, or to the classmates or the public, and so on. So let me just take you to a project like that that shows exactly this principle. And so this is a project, engineering design. This is an engineering design template. The idea behind it is that a team of students decided to come up with an innovation, one that solves some kind of a community pain point. And so in order to find out what are those pain points, they are going to send a survey. And so this is an example of a survey. What does not work as well as you would like it to work, or what problems would you like to see solved, and so on. So they are going through this, and you know, they are sending it out to the public, to the students in the school, or whoever the public is. And then once they get examples, once they get the results, they will then look through it. And the team will start brainstorming about which of these ideas are more worthwhile to attempt. And so they will use these digital sticky notes to actually write up their ideas. And they will also vote on the best one. So they will decide, okay, this is mine, this is yours, but let's vote and see which one we think that is the biggest pain point that we probably should attempt. And once they get to that conclusion, then they will write down their idea here. And they will even tell us how it solves a problem, and what type of problems it solves, and even come up with some very rough draft of what, you know, how they think it should be executed, and finally what they think that the impact will be on the community. Moving on from here, they will now go into actually doing some research. So okay, so now they have an idea, but they have to do research whether something like this already exists in the market. And so they will come up and list all the ideas that they found, and they will ask if whatever exists in the market is solving, what type of problems it is solving, and what type of problem it is not solving. Because if it's not solving part of it, maybe we can create our own product, and it will be better, and will solve more problems in the specific pain point that the public has. And so, and moving on from here, they will come up with their napkin version of their design idea and draw it down, and then they will even describe it here. But at this point, again, they need to send it back. They need to reflect on it and send it back to the public to reflect on their idea. So they will send now the next survey, and this one is going to ask, do you like this new innovation as presented to you in this design? Is this new innovation useful, and so on? So once they get these results, they will even publish the chart of what the results are and which of these ideas got the most votes. And of course, moving on from here, now they have already a foundation to start building to start creating the design drawings, and put them here, paste them here in this section, and describe, of course, the design, and as well as come up with some innovation success criteria here. And again, it's going to, they need to reflect on it. So they will use these sticky notes to reflect on their design ideas. And they will move on to actually, once, you know, when they come up with some conclusions, they will move on to the prototyping process. And at this point, they will take photos of how they are prototyping, but before that, they will come up with the best materials for the prototyping here and take photos of how they build and even describe each step of the building here using these annotations and put an image of the final prototype here for us. Then they will use again, moving on, they will use these sticky notes again to reflect on the prototype and moving on to the next step, which is actually testing it, seeing how it works. And it actually needs to work. So here, the students will go through different iterations of testing. In each step, so they're using the annotation tool, and in each step, they are showing, they can put either a video or an image here, capture a video of what they are testing, and describe each step of the prototyping test. And then this is, and then reflect on it, and then come up with some things that they want to fix, and they will do another iteration of testing, and they can do as many as they need until they get something that is really as perfect as they think it should be. And at that point, it goes again back to the public's opinion, and they will send another survey, and this time it will be, how do you like the product or service we created, and so on. So you understand how this process works. There is constantly, like, they would like to reach some goal, and that goal has to be in the end perfect. But while getting to that goal, it's a whole process of asking questions, of learning new things about the problem, of reflecting, and of fixing, and doing this again and again, and sending surveys to the public until the product that they want to create is really the best they can create. And then, of course, as I said before, here comes the revision. So the public comes up with their opinions, and based on what the public says, they go back to the drawing board and create an innovation improvement list here, describe the new design that they will come up with, and even provide us with a few drawings of the design, as well as take pictures or videos of the prototyping process, and again reflect on it, and again send it back to the public for review, and finally they will retest this again. So this is how this works. You understand that this is really a long process of inquiry-based learning that needs to end with a product that is as good as they can produce. So let me just go back again to our characteristics. So we described two. Let's move on to the third one, which says projects are anchored in core subject matter content, allowing students to build knowledge and develop problem-solving, critical thinking, and collaboration skills. So you understand by the example that I showed you here that, after they know the driving question and they come up with the refining questions, they start figuring out what is it, what types of subjects, areas they need to understand in order to solve this problem. And that's what we are talking here, the core subject matter content that these projects are anchored in. And it allows students to build knowledge. So this is what allows them to build knowledge and develop problem solving, critical thinking, and collaboration skills, of course. And by that we mean, by collaboration skills, we mean that this whole entire process is that the work is not done. So in every one of these project-based learning projects, the work is not done by one student. The work is divided. And this is where the whole idea of teamwork goes in, where they have to respect each other's work. They have to accomplish what they take on themselves to do. And they have to constantly work together and respect each other's efforts, and and come up with conclusions that the entire team agrees to, and basically, and of course, whatever assignment they are taking on themselves, they have to do, because if they are not, then the other team members will suffer and they'll need to do the part of that team member who lacks to complete their work. And so, so the next one is that project-based learning is a tool that can create a more student-centered learning environment that improves outcomes. So we already talked about that, about student-centered here in this first one. So that's very clear that this is student-centered because the responsibility falls on the students to do the work. At the same time, the teacher's role changes to becoming a mentor. So the teacher's role is to watch how the progress that students are making. And if the teacher feels that the students are wearing off, the teacher needs to kind of guide them back to the right direction. But the teacher should not lead the project or direct it, but rather to be a person who corrects things so that in the end, the students are going to arrive at the required, not required, but at the intended goal. And research confirms that project-based learning has a positive impact on students, leading to increased achievement and higher levels of motivation. So this type of learning, clearly, because there is so much stake in, that students have so much stake in it, clearly leads to better learning outcomes because of the high level of motivation that students have in this type of environment. And numerous studies found positive association between project-based learning and students' development of knowledge and cognitive skills. So it's clear because of that, because of those subject matter content that they absolutely need to learn in order to solve the problem, it will lead the students to the development of knowledge and cognitive skills. So before I conclude this, I would like to move on and show you what are the best practices of how to design a project-based learning project. And so this whole process starts here and moves on this way until the end. And so the beginning is that effective project-based learning requires purposeful and authentic experiences generated by students engaging in relevant questions. And so, of course, those questions need to be authentic and so need to be part of what students are experiencing in their lives, or what is happening in the country or in the city that they live in, or in the school. And of course, the questions need to be relevant to their lives. A main question should drive a unit of study, and that question should be feasible to consider, worthwhile, contextualized, meaningful, and ethical. So let me just take an example of one of those questions that could qualify to be a driving question for a project. How to design a new park that supports local plant life, for example. So yes, so let's look at these categories that they are listing here. So it should be feasible, definitely feasible. I mean, what students need to do here is to investigate what are the local plants that will qualify to plant in this park. And worthwhile, definitely worthwhile, because a park is a place that benefits the entire community and definitely benefits students as well. Contextualized. So, of course, in the sense that, like I said before, it's not enough just to go and find out what are the plants that you can plant in a local park. It's also important to understand everything about planting, about watering, about the weather, even, what type of weather is going to affect these plants and so on. So this, like I said before, these are those the knowledge base that they absolutely have to understand. So in that sense, it's going to be contextualized. Meaningful, definitely meaningful. It is meaningful because, like I said before, the park is such an important place for everybody in the community. And ethical, of course, ethical, because nothing is being destroyed. On the contrary, students are creating something of value. So these questions should be related to students' lives, the communities in which young people reside, and real-world issues happening outside the classroom. Of course, as I said before here, these projects should relate to the interest of students. So, for example, if the question how to build an affordable housing, maybe that doesn't have too much relevance to a specific student's life because they are just not interested in housing, but they are much more interested in, in in designing a new park because that's in their own community and they can benefit from it directly. So what basically they're saying here, that it has to have some relevance to students' immediate lives. Projects should feature deep integration with course content and be rooted in core subject areas, helping to deepen and build student knowledge of important topics. So like I said before, there is no escape of this. If this is a real project-based learning, then it's very clear that once the student determine what is the driving question, they have to come up with that knowledge base that is absolutely important for them to understand in order to solve the problem. So that will definitely happen. Quality PBL benefits from collaborative peer-to-peer interaction and trusting student-teacher relationship. So definitely, as I said before, collaboration is key. And collaboration is key because, first of all, nothing is, the more complex our world is, it is becoming clear that nothing is done by one person. If you look at workplaces, and you will see that a lot of the work is done in teams. And teams meaning that every single team member is responsible for one aspect of whatever product or process that they are producing there. And so this is also true for for project-based learning, of course. And so there's a few aspects to that. One of them is that the work needs to be divided, and needs to be divided in a way that all team members agree to that division. It is also it also has to be clear that even if I am a team member and I'm not covering what the other team member is doing, we have to share that information and we have to weigh in and we have to respect each other's opinions and to change when change is warranted, when the entire team agrees that some changes need to be made. So all this needs to be done in a very respectful environment where every team member respects each other's work. Also, there shouldn't be a situation where one team member decides not to do the work that they agreed to be part of, because what that creates a situation where the other team members have to take on that work, and that is absolutely unfair to the other team members, and and not very collaborative. Finally, learning from research and relying on evidence about what works is essential. These practices include providing feedback to students, creating opportunities for reflection, and empowering students to share their learning with others. And so this is where we see the role of the teacher here. So the teacher needs to provide feedback to students. And based on that feedback, the students need to also come up with their own reflection. What I already showed you in that project, how every step of the way they have to reflect on what is done. They also have to send it out to the public for feedback, and only then they are able to move on to the next step. And of course, the teacher needs to be empowering students to share their learning with others. So once the entire process of review is complete and they come up with the final product that they intended, they are ready to present the project in front of the class or the school, or even to people outside of school, to the public, to that public that they sent their surveys to, and so on. So thank you very much. I hope that this helped you understand what is project-based learning and what are the best practices to use. This is a part one of a series of training you to use Project Pulse. The next two will be on actually how to use the application. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next course.